Men, how seriously do you consider a woman's salary when you are choosing a wife? If it is one of your top 3 deal breakers, meaning she must have a high earning salary, what kind of job do you have? If it is not a priority for you at all, what is your background or what kind of job do you have? Story 1. Less about salary and more about whether she is in debt, her spending and savings habits relative to her earnings, her investment strategy or lack of it, and if she is a grown adult managing it by herself without relying on her parents or her ex-husband. Story 2. This is one of those situations where women tend to project their own standards onto men. I have never heard a man say anything like, "Yeah, she is great, but she really does not earn enough." From my experience, that is just not a standard women are held to at all. I personally do not care either. Pull your own weight, as you hopefully did before we started dating. Done. Story 3. My requirement is no debt, at least no debt large enough to cause misery and turmoil, always making her in a bad mood, with every conversation based on penny pinching. I have already dealt with someone like that. It's exhausting. So no debt and able to take care of herself financially for her own personal expenses, without asking for money every day or week for purses, alcohol, and unnecessary items. I'm patient, but some days I just have to make comments like, "Why are you buying so many expensive purses when you don't have money to carry?" She then has a meltdown. So yes, I need someone financially smart, mature, responsible, and accountable. If I wanted a woman child, I would just adopt a daughter. Story 4. Look at any data. Men will gladly date horizontally or downward. It is rare for men to demand dating up financially. Story 5. I want someone who has the flexibility to travel and accompany me to my work whenever they want. I work about 10 to 20 hours a week most of the time, with some rare, intense weeks of 60 to 80 hours. Money is not an issue. Having someone I love to spend time with, share ideas, and listen to their ideas would be amazing. Story 6. I have been married for over 15 years. Marriage was high on my priority list. We got married young, but we both had high earning potential. We live in a very high cost of living area and knew we wanted children. Having 2 incomes provides security, the ability to build savings, hire help, and travel as desired. In the end, being financially secure is important to marriage quality. Story 7. In today's world, most couples need to be dual income. However, in my over 40 years on this planet, I have never heard a man have financial requirements for the woman he is dating. Most men, I think, just want a woman with a decent job who is not in a lot of debt. Story 8. If she is making more money than me, I would be glad that we can afford good things. I honestly do not care as long as she has a full-time job and is independent when it comes to finances and decision-making. Story 9. It is number 1. She needs to earn enough money so that I can live my dream of never having to work. Story 10. I'm a 29-year-old single man. I have never once thought about what I'd like my future partner's salary to be. As someone who makes $50,000 a year, but used to work at a convenience store making $23,000 a year, I genuinely don't care. I don't plan on marrying someone for money. It will be for love and commitment. The only requirement I have is that I'd like my significant other to be employed. It doesn't matter where, but they should have some kind of job. It doesn't necessarily need to be a career they are working towards, just something consistent. I have dated women who make 2 to 3 times my salary, and I won't lie, it would have been nice to stay with them. We even talked about me being a stay-at-home husband since my salary at the time was $23,000 a year, which was negligible compared to her salary. I've dated a woman who literally told me, "Don't ask how much I make, but money is not on my mind for a spouse. I just want a stable household, so a second income is the requirement for me." Story 11. It is not. As long as they are pursuing their career goals and contributing in some way, I am happy. Story 12. Not really. I will be fine with her having an average salary. She just needs to work in something that is legal and not against my ideals. For example, no drug dealers or sex work. Story 13. It's definitely important to me. However, it is not as simple as saying, "You have a low salary, deal breaker." If she has a low salary and no aspirations, then that is a deal breaker. A low salary but has aspirations and the drive to improve? That is acceptable in my opinion. To answer your next question, I am a data engineer. Story 14. She needs to earn enough to support the lifestyle she wants. For example, if I make $200,000 a year and she wants to live a $250,000 lifestyle, she should earn $50,000. Story 15. It is only a concern if we cannot have the life we want together on my salary alone. Otherwise, her income is irrelevant. Story 16. Not much at all. Just my opinion, but her salary should be equal to or preferably less than spending on taste. We will likely always have a newer vehicle and she will drive it. As my wife and mother of my children, I want that for her. I am not caught up on shiny stuff. I will drive an old car with a heater. I cannot relate to someone who only wants new Mercedes and BMWs every other year. Hard pass. Story 17. I do not consider it, but it is always a nice bonus if I do not have to pay for everything. I have a good job and earn enough. Story 18. I am married. When I was dating, I did not really care about salary. I wanted her to work hard and do a good job. The amount she earned was not that important. Story 19. The only consideration is, can she survive by herself? I do not want to marry someone in debt, and I really could not care less about whether we are living together in a camper or a 5-story luxury home. Take care of yourself, including food and shelter, and from there I am more than happy to step in and help elevate both of our lives as best I can. Story 20. It should not be a priority. The whole point of choosing someone to marry is deciding to build a life together. Story 21. Not that I am looking for a relationship right now, but if I did, the primary thing I would want to see is self-sufficiency. I do not care if you are poor, but I do care that you have ambitions, plans, and goals, and have achieved them at least to the point where you can subsist. I do not want a child, so I am uninterested in supporting an adult as if they were one. Story 22. It matters a lot. My wife needs to earn around the same as I do or more. I want a comfortable life where we are equal. We split chores, bills, and everything else. Story 23. Something I have never once considered when dating or choosing a wife, which is a really weird statement in my opinion. Story 24. It is not a priority for men at all. It is the other way around. Women, in general, will pass up a good man if he does not make a certain amount. Men, on the other hand, are more than willing to have joint accounts and cover the bulk of the budget if necessary. Story 25. I make 3 times what my wife makes. This was similar when we met. I didn't care because she didn't know, and I don't care about flash. Story 26. We could make it on my salary, but the budget would be tight. I would like her to have some income so we are not eating instant noodles every night. Story 27. When I was younger, I did not think about it. Now that I am older and wiser, I have a no-mooch policy. If she cannot pay her own way, forget it. Story 28. Not a concern at all for me. I guess I am more on the traditional side in that sense. If she wants to focus on her career, great. Any money she makes is extra. If she wants to be a stay-at-home mom, that is great too. I am fine being the primary earner. My wife and I have done it both ways, and there are pros and cons to either approach. Story 29. I think it is important that she has her own means of earning a living. Otherwise, the person with the job becomes the piggy bank. It also shows that someone is motivated and has their own goals and ambitions. I wanted someone who had a similar salary range to me, but it was not a deal breaker, just icing on the cake. Story 30. It does not really matter to me as long as she has enough money to pay her bills and is not struggling financially. I come from a lower middle class background and have an income that is enough to pay my bills and travel around the world a bit. I could not support a second person financially, so it is important that she has an income that is enough for her. Story 31. As long as her expectations match her income, I do not care. You are a teacher who likes to spend Friday nights watching television and playing video games? Great. You are a part-time barista who wants to take a vacation every 4 months and get a new car every 3 years? Please reconsider. Story 32. Generally, no. I got married when we were both making just past retail wages. and we worked up from there. Honestly, if I did not like a woman for other reasons, such as not finding her personally attractive or not enjoying talking to her, her income would not change my feelings. Story 33. I'm married now, but when dating, I never factored in their salary. It just wasn't important to me or what I was looking for in a partner. I assumed they roughly lived within their means and weren't fiscally irresponsible. I chose my spouse based on what she could bring to the relationship outside of education or salary. When we first started dating, she made more than me since she was bartending and I was in school. Once I graduated, she went back to school and I started my career, so we switched on who paid more for things. She worked full-time before we had kids, but even then, her pay wasn't that much, so I never factored it into the monthly budget or long-term retirement goals. Her pay was simply a buffer. Now she works less than 15 hours a week, so I probably make about 10 times what she does annually. I have a graduate degree and run the information technology and development division for a service company, primarily working from home even before the COVID-19 pandemic. She works 2 days a week and watches our kids the other 3 days when they're not in school. I usually spend time with them during the day as long as I don't have specific deadlines or meetings scheduled. Story 34. Do not fall into the trap of becoming the man you want. I have money. I needed a woman who had time and inclination to have a family. I married my assistant. A woman's income is a zero priority. Explain what you mean by background. I am American. I own a manufacturing business. When we met, I was still holding down a sales management position at another company as an employee. Story 35. I might be an outlier, but it is nice to date someone who makes a good income, can carry her weight, and buy me nice things too. I make a good income myself, but there is no pressure to support her. Story 36. Are you expecting the people who do not care to make minimum wage and those who do to become billionaires? Story 37. No priority. Love has nothing to do with her salary. We make it work with what we have. I do not care if she is the boss of a bank or a simple cashier. Love is what I care about. Is she sweet, caring, and loyal? That is enough. Story 38. It is not. I make enough money myself. If anything, certain careers are deal breakers regardless of income level. Story 39. I do not care about her income or salary, but I do care about her debt. If she spends more than she earns, then it is a problem even if she is making high six figures. I would rather have someone who makes no money and spends no money. Story 40. The goal should be for you to make enough money to let her stay at home and raise your children, unless you would rather someone else do that. Story 41. I care more about her brain, emotional stability, mental awareness, ego, hopefully lack thereof, kindness, loyalty, and things of that nature. Money is the last thing to me because it is not real. Love is real. Story 42. It is not even on the list of factors. Her ability to be financially responsible is important. I would far rather be married to someone on minimum wage who can stick to a budget than someone earning £200,000 who still manages to live beyond her means. Story 43. Not super high, but I can already afford my lifestyle and a bit more. I don't mind bringing someone into my life who doesn't earn as much as me as long as they can earn or bring other things to the table. I have other friends who care about it a lot because having two strong incomes would be a huge upgrade for everyone involved. For me, it would be big but not life-changing. Story 44. It was never important. I've had girlfriends on minimum wage who would have been good wives, and some who earned the same as me, though they probably did not have enough potential to actually be one. My wife earns less because she works part-time for childcare. She will earn a lot more eventually when she returns to full-time work. What has always been more important is the relationship, the connection, emotional maturity, and the desire to develop and grow together. I did have one girlfriend who quickly became difficult around money. She did not last long. It's fair enough to buy what you can afford when going out for a drink, but do not ask for two separate drinks, usually a coffee and a soft drink, when it is my round. Story 45. I personally do not care specifically for it, especially in late-stage capitalist societies. The job market is difficult, and if you are doing well, you are probably stepping on some people. I will nevertheless look for a woman who is in my social class, meaning I consider their politics, degrees, and view of the world and themselves in it. If we are on the same page there, we will figure the rest out. I am a mechanical engineer. Story 46. I put more priority on what she does to make money than the actual money. If she makes her money on OnlyFans or doing something similar, I know that her earnings will eventually decline, even though some people make a lot of money. If she is an attorney, doctor, or in another profession where her earnings will increase as she gains more experience, that is important for growth. That being said, she could be a billionaire, but if we do not get along, she might as well be broke. Story 47. Can we add a twist to your main question? If salary does not matter and she makes less than half of what you make, do you still expect to split all expenses equally? Are there still men who pay more when they earn more? Story 48. I'd like them to make enough so that they are not financially dependent on me. If things get bad, they can afford to leave. Story 49. I do not mind. As long as she has goals in life she is pursuing and I am earning enough for both of us, it is not a problem. Story 50. I want her to be happy with what she does rather than focusing on having the most successful or lucrative job. Story 51. She needs to be able to support herself and be independent. Beyond that, I do not really care what she makes. Story 52. I want a life partner who will cooperate throughout life. Whether that involves economic provisions or something else is a minor difference. Story 53. No consideration. I can provide a life that is comfortable for us both, so she has the ability to choose what she wants. Story 54. I do not care. Given that my dating range is generally late 20s and up, I am 38. I prefer they are at least independent before dating them. This is more about me being interested in people capable of behaving like adults than anything else. Story 55. It was not a high priority and never has been. However, what is important is that she shows she is able to pull herself up by her bootstraps and take care of me and our family if things go awry on my end. I lost my job and my wife did not leave. She looked for solutions and ways to make money regardless of my salary. My wife will make things work if I become incapacitated. I know many women who would leave if they had this type of responsibility thrust upon them. This is not what I want in a wife. I have a computer-related job helping customers. It is engineering-related, and I earn a six-figure salary. Story 56. If he is not making much, then a person would probably care a lot. However, if he is already making decent money, then what she does matters much more than how much she makes. Story 57. Salary is unimportant. Work ethic and general drive are important, but the most important factor is how comfortable she is with her salary compared to her current lifestyle. Are her bills paid on time and is she saving money? Is she always broke and still spending frivolously? Story 58. My soon-to-be wife makes more money than I do. I am still in love with her and attracted to her. How much money people make should not be the criteria you use to choose your partner. My fiancée and soon-to-be wife is a genuine person who loves me for who I am. I was just a grocer. Depending on your views, a grocer not only makes minimum wage but often does not get full-time hours. Currently, I believe that since we are together, she may make more than I do. All that means to me is that together we bring in enough to support each other while our government takes our money to support the elite, the rich, the homeless, the lazy, and programs we do not have access to. If you find a man who has an issue with you making more than him, that is his issue. I do not care which is actually the wrong wording. She makes more, and I am not threatened. It is more for our family, which is me and her and whoever else we build it with. That is common sense. Story 59. It's not important to most men. It's not a standard we generally apply to women. I don't care unless she wants to be spending my money or our money as if it's her fun money. Debt, however, should be a super high priority if the man isn't a moron. If she's coming to a marriage with 6 figures of debt on very low 5-figure income, run, brother. Obviously, kids change the story a lot. This isn't tied to a job. Nearly no guy will care how much a woman earns. Will care if she doesn't want to carry her weight or otherwise compensate for not bringing cash to the table. Story 60. As a woman, I've never had a man ask me how much money I make. They always ask if I like what I do. Although I've never asked a man how much he makes, I know many women who do. I taught my daughters not to ask because of this exact reason. For me and what I've tried to teach my daughters, don't ask what someone brings to the table, build the table together. Don't look to a man for security. Be secure in yourself and always live within your own means. Choose someone who will cook together, clean together, make goals together that you plan, implement, and execute together. Story 61. Not the salary but her intelligence. With intelligence, it greatly improves the likelihood of many aspects of life, including salary. Story 62. Has to be in the same general ballpark. Do not want someone totally dependent on me and expecting me to fund their lifestyle. To be honest, I am more concerned with income to debt ratio, as lack of financial literacy and large credit debt is a huge red flag. Story 63. Zero priority. But I am a traditional dad. Any woman I consider marrying would have a similar worldview. Our goals would have to align with stay-at-home mom and single-income dad. Story 64. Imagine that is how a war breaks out because some wild Russian thought it would be funny to pull a stunt like this. Story 65. Depends on whether I think I need money versus other needs. In my case, it was unimportant, but everyone is different. Story 66. This is an unusual factor to consider. Over the course of our marriage, the difference between my wife's income and mine has varied significantly. Sometimes we have earned about the same amount, sometimes she has earned more than I have, and sometimes I have earned more than she has. Life happens and circumstances change. Story 67. Bottom of the list, honestly. I am a butcher, farmer, and private chef. I can afford my farm and life on my income alone. Story 68. The spouse has already been chosen. Salary was barely considered. The only related factor that would have been a deal breaker was excessive debt. Story 69. Recently remarried after my wife passed away. I found out after we were engaged that her pension is more than I made in my final year of working. I am fine with that. Additionally, I am covered under her medical plan. Life has turned around. Story 70. I didn't care if she made money or not. My wife became a nurse and made good money. Now she is a stay-at-home mom and I much prefer that. The woman I chose to spend my life with is always home when I get home, and it's the best. She used to work the graveyard shift, and we saw each other rarely. Both of us hated it. I work as an electrician. Story 71. It is important that it is not zero, meaning she works. I have no children, will not date a single mother, have had a vasectomy, and am not looking to be a provider. Story 72. If having a high earning salary is one of your top 3 deal breakers, what kind of job do you have? Corrupt dictatorship oligarch. If it is not a priority for you at all, what is your background or what kind of job do you have? Young pizza delivery person who pursues wealthy widows in their 90s. Story 73. None. I want a partner who can help me. Any amount of money made combined with considerate spending habits will do that. Money is always fluctuating, no matter who is making it. The idea that it needs to be stable to make things work is not something I consider. There are always ways to make things work as long as you love each other and work together. Story 74. Not a high priority. If they are earning less than me, it is only an issue if they are unable to provide for themselves. That usually means they have bigger issues beyond money. If they earn more than me, it is only an issue if they are in a different tax bracket. This is more for practical reasons than ego. If they are in a different tax bracket, then what they choose to do socially will cost more money than I am willing or able to spend. I would rather not date someone when she is paying for everything. I would not expect a woman to expect me to pay for everything, so the reverse should also be acceptable. Story 75. Something my dad always said was, taken with a grain of salt as they were well off. It's not about how much you earn, it's what you do with it. So salary isn't an issue for me, her spending, saving, and investing habits, however, are. There are many stories of people on low incomes retiring with millions by investing smartly over 40 or more years. That is far more important to me. Story 76. This sounds like I am an employer and not a boyfriend, but I care more about their job record than the amount of money they make, truly. The amount of money does not mean much to me, but being able to take care of oneself and live independently does. Jumping from job to job and relying on family or past partners is a red flag for me. Story 77. Relatively low. The thing I value with respect to money is financial literacy and responsible handling of finances. Salary can rise and fall. Mindset and habits are what is important. Story 78. I care much more about what she is doing with her time than what she earns. I am the primary income earner and always expected to be. She does well too, but that was never taken for granted when we first got together and even after we married. Story 79. I prefer my partners to be employed and not enter the relationship with large amounts of debt, but it does not matter how much they actually earn. Realistically, I earn enough to support us both, but it feels fairer if we are both contributing, even if I am contributing more. Story 80. If combining our lives would lower my standard of living and financial security, it is a drawback. How large of a drawback depends on how severe the impact is. Slightly, it is probably not a deal breaker if everything else is exceptional. Severely, it is not worth risking my own security. If I were to assign an arbitrary number, I would say earning less than 60% of my income level is where their income starts turning from neutral to negative. Exceptions are if you are not yet earning much but are legitimately well-positioned to do so in the future. This does not include trying online college for the third time for a business degree, or planning to become an entrepreneur someday. It includes finishing medical school and doing well. Story 81. Enough to cover her expenses for things. What is more important is how she views debt and money rather than the actual amount of money. I do not want to bankroll everything, and I want spending to be somewhat equitable. There is no six-figure or higher requirement, but rather, does she already make enough to sustain herself somewhat comfortably? Finance and accounting, and I work in government. I can handle investments, budgeting, and long-range cash flow forecasting. My significant other would only need to spend responsibly and make enough to cover her general expenses. Story 82. Men, how seriously do you consider a woman's salary when choosing a wife? Is she supporting herself without help? That is the threshold required. If it is one of your top 3 deal breakers, meaning she must have a high earning salary, what kind of job do you have? In all honesty, in my 42 years of life, I have never heard a man say that a woman must have a high earning salary, and if she does not, it is a deal breaker. Men were not raised to consider that. Story 83. Not a priority at all. I only care whether she can contribute monetarily in an equal percentage to what she takes away from the household. If her take-home pay is, say, 45% of the household total, then she should pay 45% of our vacation costs. Story 84. Do not care about how much money she makes as long as she tries her best. That is all I ask for. Honest, genuine effort. Story 85. I am a high earner and I met a woman who wants to be a mother and wife first. Most high-earning men do not care about the added income of a woman. Strong providers and elite men are attracted to traditionally feminine traits. If a man needs a woman's income, he is setting himself up for a bad relationship dynamic, especially when women are exhausted from children but feel forced to work to pay family bills. It is not the natural way of things. Story 86. I didn't pick out my wife like she's a bunch of asparagus at the grocery store. I married, sort of long story, someone I enjoyed spending time with, a living, breathing person with her own interests and hobbies. I met another human being that I had a fun time with, and we decided we'd like to get a house together and be married, again, sort of. They still have civil unions in Colorado. She could have made $0 or $1 billion a year. The point was simply that I found someone I get to spend every day with in love. Story 87. More men probably should be thinking about that given the number who cry after divorce and are financially drained paying alimony. Story 88. A high-earning wife is often viewed negatively. At some point, most couples want to have children. From what I have observed, most mothers do not want to return to work immediately. Some do, but generally, mothers prefer to stay home with their children until they reach school age. If the wife is a high earner, it becomes nearly impossible for the man to earn enough to maintain the same lifestyle. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.